All right. Hey guys, and welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about exposure and response prevention and really moving against fear. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cotty, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds. And I'm also the creator of the AAA Response. And when it comes to doing ERP, I get a lot of questions every week submitted. And so I wanted to talk about the importance of moving against fear and why that's critical to your success when we're talking about exposure and OCD and anxiety recovery. So just to really clarify, right, exposure and response prevention is really just this idea of exposing ourselves to the thing we're afraid of. Now that can be a situation like a dirty door handle, or it can also be a thought that we don't like, right? Like just having the thought pop in our mind. That's an exposure as well, right? It's experiencing our fear head on and then preventing ourselves from responding with anything that is going to reinforce the fear, right? In that loop, which we call compulsions or safety behaviors. Okay, so it's really that direct confrontation of the fear. And the two things I want to talk about with exposure and response prevention is, number one, with ERP, you need to be consistent. Consistency is more important than the intensity of the exposure. Because again, it's really about consistent exposure is what is really going to help with that neuroplasticity and the rewiring of the brain. Secondly, is aggression and really going on the offense is critical to your success. So, and this is what I want to talk about today, is this idea of moving against fear. And let's talk about what that means. So when you're experiencing anxiety about something, this voice in your mind's going on and it's like, what if this, what if this, what if this, what if this? And this generates all these feelings. It might be intrusive thoughts, intrusive images. It doesn't matter, right? When you're anxious about something, essentially that fear is kind of holding it over your head. Okay. And as long as you are unable to coexist with the uncertainty of that thing, that fear is going to be able to hold it over your head and essentially control you. I mean, that's the whole reason that my program is called Taking Back Control. For those of you that are members, and if you haven't yet, I mean, I really encourage you to look at it, because that is what we're doing when we're facing fear. We are taking back control of our life. If fear dictates any part of your life, it has control over you, and then you live a limited life. Now, I know this firsthand very well. Those of you that are familiar with my story, like when I was 18, 19 years old, I was lost in a world of OCD and anxiety. I didn't even know that that's what I was experiencing, and I spent years in that loop. And when I was in that loop, I lived a very, very small, limited life because I let fear dictate everything that I was doing. So when we talk about taking back control, what we're really talking about is saying, I'm going to live life on my terms, not on fear's terms. And so when we're doing ERP, what we're really doing is saying, I'm not going to let fear dictate this part of my life anymore. That's really, if I had to summarize what ERP is, it is systematically taking back your life from fear. See, so many people, you read about ERP online and it's like, okay, I need to do this one exposure and then I'm going to get better and I have no anxiety. It's like, no, that's not how ERP works, right? The consistency of exposure causes habituation, so you don't emotionally react to a situation anymore like that. But really, the reason we're doing it is so you can live on your terms. That phobia of flying isn't going to prevent you from going on that vacation. The fear of germs isn't going to prevent you from hugging people, and embracing your family, and these are just a few examples of things I've seen. But, it's like the fear of having panic attacks isn't going to prevent you from leaving the house so you can go outside and walk and see the world. That's what ERP is about. That's why I love doing what I do is because, I get the opportunity to teach people skills that help them go and live fuller lives. And I've experienced this prison and the freedom myself. Okay. And so when it comes to moving against fear, let me talk about what that means. Essentially, when we're afraid of something, and like I said, it's just something that someone's holding over our head. And the best analogy that I've seen of this is, well, I shouldn't say maybe the best, but a good analogy that I've saw in this was the show Billions, right? And so this is going to get, I'm going to talk about some adult concepts here. So I just want to preface that ahead of time because it's part of the show. But I just wanted to kind of warn you about that ahead of time. So in the show Billions, the character played by Paul Giamatti, he's as a politician and lawyer, and he's running for office. And essentially what happens is he, in his personal life, he practices sadomasochism and has kind of alternative lifestyle when it comes to his intimate life, than what, maybe not mainstream. And these people find out about it and they kind of hold it over him, right? They say if you don't, I forget the exact scene of the movie, or I'm sorry, the show, but I forget how it played out. But essentially these two people that are helping him campaign say, if you don't support this, or if you don't, endorse this or whatever it was, we're going to reveal your big secret to everyone. And so what he did is he just ends up going up in the public forum and he just tells everyone about his intimate life. He just publicly discloses it. Says, hey, you know what? I practice S&M in my home and I just want you guys to know that. And then he talks about this weight just being lifted off his shoulders. Now, the reason I share that story is because once he did that, all the power that those people had over him was instantly lost. Because it's like, what can they do? Tell everyone else again? And this is kind of the attitude that we need to have towards fear. Because what fear will do is it will say, if you aren't certain about this particular topic, or if you aren't, then everything's going to go terribly, right? And I don't want to get too specific in examples because it's really the principle here that I'm talking about. But when he moved against the fear of that being held over his head, it freed him from the control that it had over him. But he had to aggressively do it, right? What he could have done is just endorse what they said, and then they could just use that again and again and again and again and again to control him. And I might even throw a link to that scene down in the notes below, just if you wanted to watch it. But it's a good show. I really enjoyed the show. But that's what fear does, and that's what the voice in the mind does in our lives, right? Oh my gosh, don't do this, or this terrible thing's going to happen. And because we don't want that terrible thing to happen, we then do what it says. We control, we avoid, we do these things. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go and actually do anything crazy like that, but oftentimes it's just simply your willingness to stand in the face of the fear and entertain that possibility that causes that same effect, right? So it's when the person who has a contamination fear touches that doorknob, and that fear in their mind says, oh my gosh, what if you get AIDS? It's like, maybe I will. And when they're willing to stand in the face of their deepest fear, that's what causes the liberation. The reason we do exposure and response prevention is to create liberation from fear. That's what it's about. Don't let anyone, it's not about reducing anxiety or to, cope with it, right? It's like the reason we do exposure and response prevention is to show your brain that what you're afraid of is not actually dangerous. Okay. And therefore stop setting off the stress response. But the real reason we do it is to liberate you from the control that fear has over you. And when you get to taste the liberation from fear, you don't even realize how big of a prison you've been in until you're liberated. And it's like, it's like you can't live 1 foot in the jail, 1 foot out. It's like you got to decide that liberation and freedom is the most important thing. And that's why when we move against fear, what we're really doing is saying, you know what, do your worst. Let's go. Because internally, we have to decide that worst fear coming true is actually is actually not as bad as living in fear of that thing. And that's what he demonstrated in that scene of the show, right? He said, you know what? Everyone knowing about my intimate life and judging me, yeah, I don't particularly want that. But at the end of the day, them controlling me for the rest of my life because they might tell people this, no. Like, that's worse. And that's kind of how I look at fear in my own life, right? If I feel fear creeping up, it's like, not going to be a slave to fear, you know? And anyone who tries to install fear, right, and any kind of thing like that, it's like that's what they do. They install fear to control, because that's what fear does. It makes us shrink back, and then we are able to get manipulated. So if you notice that, the best thing you can do is move against fear. Now, I'm not saying to do anything dangerous. I'm not saying to do anything radical. Please don't listen to this and go do some, wild thing about it. It's like, it really is in context here, in context of exposure and response prevention. What we're doing is we're moving against fear to liberate ourselves from the control that fear has over us. And the more you can move against it, the freer you will become. That's really the main idea here, the main takeaway that I want to share. And the more consistently you do that, the bigger that freedom is going to be. So I hope that this was helpful. And please, if this is something you struggle with, again, you don't need to do this alone. Like, please, get the guidance, get guidance. Like, if there's one shortcut in recovery, it's getting guidance from people that have done it, and at Restored Minds, like, we have guidance for you in various different forms to depending where what kind of like support you're looking for. So please, head over and, check out Restored Minds. There's links down below for some resources that you can get started with as well. And so please check those out, as well as please show your support for our show by liking and subscribing, leaving a comment, leaving a review on iTunes. These things really help our show get to more people and help the algorithm. So if you gain from the show and you benefit from this, please support us by doing that. And then also please check the resources out below. So hope that was helpful. And again, the tip of the week is just to move against fear and to do it as much as you can in your life, because you deserve to live free of fear and not be controlled by it. So thanks so much, guys. Have a great week. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care. Thank you so much for watching that video. And so if you're struggling with OCD and anxiety, I just wanted to let you know that we have a free training for you over at Restored Minds, where you can start learning how to use our AAA response to really break out of that loop and ultimately take back control of your life. And all you need to do to access is just click the little link below and you'll be taken to a page where you can register today. Thank you so much.